Welcome to another video from Charis Ministries. We're glad you're able to join us today. Our passion is to see people trained, equipped and developing for ministry. We're focusing today on part 2 of this idea of community transformation. Our key verse is 2 Chronicles chapter 7 verse 14, where God says, "If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves, pray and seek my face, turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven." So we have this desire to see transformation in our own lives and in the area in which we live and minister. So how does that come about? In our previous video, we looked at this idea of humbling ourselves and what that means. So I'd encourage you to have a look at that video. Today we're going to look at the second part of that verse, and this idea that community transformation needs God's people to pray. If you're a Christian leader, then that's not rocket science. That's something you'll be familiar with. That's something you will encourage others to do. And yet so many statistics, so many surveys suggest that the average church pastor, the average church leader only prays for 7 minutes a day. Depending on what country you come from, you may spend a lot more time in prayer. I've found in my travels that people in Asia, people in India, Pakistan, other countries would spend a lot more time in prayer. Often in the Western world, we spend less time. And so we have things to overcome, we have things to learn, we have challenges, and we can follow the example of the Eastern Church. But nonetheless, we come back to that basic point that if we're going to see community transformation, then we need to pray. We need to be people of prayer. There's lots of books and resources on that. Bill Hybels talks about Too Busy Not to Pray. J. Oswald Sanders talks about a number of areas of praying books, and we can put some resources at the end of this video. But I want to ask you a question, and I want you to think about this for a moment. We know we need to pray, but really, what kind of prayers should we be praying? The Message version of Matthew chapter 6 verses 5 to 11 I think gives us some little nuances, some little insights that may be helpful in our own prayers. And when you come before God, don't turn that into a theatrical production. All these people making a regular show out of their prayers, hoping for stardom. Do you think that God sits in a box seat? Here's what I want you to do. Find a quiet, secluded place so you won't be tempted to role play before God. Just be there as simply and honestly as you can manage. The focus will shift from you to God, and you will begin to sense His grace. The world is full of so-called prayer warriors who are prayer ignorant. They're full of formulas and programs and advice, peddling techniques for getting what you want from God. Don't fall for that nonsense. This is your Father that you're dealing with, and He knows better than what you need. With a God like this loving you, you can pray very simply, like this: Our Father in heaven. I think there's a number of things there that speak into my life and will speak into your life. The temptation to role play before God. When we're in public, the public prayers, maybe you've heard it, I've certainly heard it, people putting on a different type of voice, a more religious voice rather than a normal conversational voice. Temptation to big up our prayers. And God tells us, no, make your prayers secluded, make them alone so that you can be honest and yourself before God. Shifting from ourselves to God. I'm reminded of that story in Scripture where the Pharisee is coming to pray, and Jesus notices this, and there's a tax collector, a sinner coming to pray, and the Pharisee is proud, and he says, "I'm glad you haven't made me like this sinner." But then the tax collector comes and says, "God, be merciful to me, a sinner." Not role playing, not grand standing for others, simply and honestly, shifting from us to God. The other thing that I notice in this verse is the so-called formulas and prayer warriors presenting ideas that these 7 steps will guarantee you success. I'm afraid I just don't see that in the Bible. Jesus tells us to be honest, to be asking, to keep on asking, and to keep on seeking. We're not trying to twist the arm of a reluctant God, but we do need to persist sometimes in prayer. I think the other thing that's important to realize is that we're coming to Father. Father knows our needs. Father knows what we require for ministry. He knows what we require for life. So I think if we can come to God honestly, without role playing, focusing on Him, not driven by formulas or techniques, and realizing we're come to the Father, that can bring a real shift in our prayer. Jesus encouraged in the Gospels around 100 times the idea of God as Father, a revolutionary idea in His own time. So we're coming to Father. I think one of the key factors for us in thinking about prayer and learning about prayer is that prayer is about dependency. It's an expression of humility, certainly, and it is about dependency on God. We're coming and recognizing that we can't add a single hour to our life, as Jesus said in Matthew 6. We can't achieve anything. Apart from Him, we can do nothing, He says in John 15. So prayer is that recognition of dependency on God. So how do we bring change? It's not by rebuking the darkness, but by turning on the light. And the light that we need for community transformation is firstly that we humble ourselves before God. That's our previous video. And today we've focused on community transformation needs God's people to pray. Thanks for watching. We hope you've enjoyed this short video, and join us for the next in the series.